All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on the psychology of productivity for real estate professionals. My name is Casey Ducote. I am the executive assistant to the team of coaches at Breaking Forward, and I also serve as the client support specialist. So, a little bit about Breaking Forward. We're a small boutique executive and professional coaching firm. We have clients from industries all across the board. We provide custom tailored coaching experiences to clients along focus tracks. So, for example, we have a productivity track, which is what we're going to be talking about today, a life career balance track. We have a leadership track for our executive and management clients, a transitional track. So, for example, somebody who is starting to do the retirement process, maybe somebody who is returning to work after maternity leave. And then we also have a professionals with ADD and ADHD track. So all of our coaches, we have 4 coaches, they all come from a mental health background. So while our coaches don't provide therapy, they have a really unique, holistic, really individual way of approaching coaching, and it's all evidence-based. So instead of just someone calling and being like, hey, did you do X amount of cold calls this week? It's a different approach. We wanted to offer this webinar topic of productivity not only to our real estate clients, but also to agents in the area in general, and open it up because this is the topic that comes up most frequently when our coaches are working with real estate professionals. How can I be more productive? How can I manage my time better? How can I be doing more of the things that generate leads and generate income? How can I become more efficient, streamlined, and effective? So with that, I want to introduce you to our presenters this afternoon. We'll be hearing from Dr. Beth Tumarkin and Kate Caravella. So a little bit about Dr. Tumarkin. She has 25 years of experience as a psychiatrist. She's considered an expert in the field of researching and working with people with ADD or ADHD diagnoses. She heads up our productivity and professional with ADD and ADHD coaching tracks. She's helped countless people develop effective strategies to better manage their lives and their careers successfully. And then we have Kate Caravella, the other co-founder of Breaking Forward Coaching. She is the owner of a highly successful business in the mental health industry. She's also the co-founder of a widely known animal charity. She has over 30 years of professional experience working with individuals, families, and small teams among a variety of professional industries. Kate has developed and oversees our career and life balance coaching track. So suffice it to say, personal and professional development and helping others grow and succeed is just what these 2 women do, and they do it very well. So with that, I will let Beth and Kate talk about the psychology of productivity.
Thank you, Casey.
Mm-hmm. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I wish we had enough time to cover everything involved in the psychology of productivity, but we're going to hit a lot of the highlights. High productivity comes from a lot of different things: motivation, personality, talent, education, the environment that we're in, the support from others, time management. Honestly, sometimes luck is involved, sometimes with a productive day versus an unproductive day. And when I think about all of those, I think of several of them coming from our brain, motivation, our personality, even time management. And I mention that because time management is one of those things that not everybody inherently has. And even some people are time blind, which is kind of funny. You'd think that everyone recognizes that time's passing, but some people really struggle with knowing that 5 minutes has gone by, or that they've just spent the last 2 hours searching a vendor and that they weren't making their calls or their lead gen stuff. So I feel like some people have that inherent knowledge of time passing and some people have none. Good news is it can be trained and there are strategies around it for everybody. for all of those, brain health is very important. Kate is actually going to get more in depth when she talks about the career life balance track that we have and just how important having that balance is. When we're overworking, we're overstressed, we can get into burnout, and our ability to perform and produce just gets negatively hampered. So motivation, it's really influenced by our emotions and our mindset. How we're feeling about a situation can motivate us or demotivate us. When we are working with clients who are fearful of rejection, when we're working with people who haven't had a lot of success when they're trying these new skills, we have to really pay attention to what they're telling themselves. Looking for negative self-talk. And we challenge some of that negative self-talk and try to change the mindset. When we are looking at contacting a potential client and we're telling ourselves this person's going to reject me just like the last 5 people have, we really don't want to pick up the phone. We really don't want to get the job done. When we instead tell ourselves, I have a service that this person could potentially benefit from, and I'm calling to see if they're interested, that changes things a little bit, and we can feel more motivated to pick up the phone and try. So when we're anxious, when we're stressed, we can avoid. When we're excited, we can tackle the job to get it done. There are some people that when they're actually feeling anxious, they'll actually just try to get it done and over with. I wish everyone could say that they grabbed the bull by the horns and just took care of the task. They didn't have to worry about it anymore. But there are a lot more people who procrastinate. And then, I haven't touched upon when we're sad. And there are just times in our lives that we can have sadness. Sometimes it can come from being burnt out. Sometimes it can come from having things happen in our life externally that are just bringing us down. We're not going to really dig into those, but that's always something that I think the coach wants to be mindful of and touch base with you about, just to make sure that emotionally things are going well for you. So if we're having our mindset influencing how we feel, and we're trying to take care of ourselves to make sure that we're feeling good, we're paying attention to how we're taking care of ourselves, we're watching our self-talk, we're maybe starting to do positive affirmations so that we're starting to strengthen those positive pathways. All of these things can start to help us feel more confident in doing the tasks that we need to do to be productive. Touching upon positive affirmations, I know it's something that's been popular for a long time, but there's really science behind it. When we tell ourselves these positive messages, like I'm going to be really excited to help people today. I am bringing them a service that not everyone can offer. I'm going to make good eye contact when I'm talking face to face, and when I'm talking on the phone, I'm gonna have a smile in my voice. We're starting to strengthen pathways in our brain. And even if it didn't feel like it worked on that day, every time you attempt, you make a change. And that's what the neuroscientists tell us. So there really is science behind the positive affirmations, and I'm pretty sure the audience has heard about them. I would encourage you guys to kind of dust off your positive affirmation list if you've tucked it away and start doing them again. And then I wanted to pivot and tell everyone about our ADHD track. So our productivity track does what you would expect. We're looking at people's motivation. We're looking at their goals, short-term, intermediate, and long-term. We're looking at the organizational abilities. We're looking at different strategies, and we're adding on top of that with the ADHD track. We're looking at, what are their particular talents in their ADHD. Having ADHD is not all bad. There's a lot of good things that come with ADHD. We can get really hyper-focused. We can get really excited about something new that we're learning. We can be extremely creative when we are coming across an obstacle or a problem that we need to work around. We We also can be really personable and engaging and can make friends easily. On the downside, because with ADHD, we have low dopamine levels. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. The lower dopamine levels can make it harder for us to focus for long term, can sometimes have an impact on our mood if we're doing something that's boring, or our energy, and sometimes can impact motivation. So we in the ADHD track, really focus on what can help boost the dopamine. Are we exercising? Are we watching what we eat? Are we getting enough sleep? And hopefully everyone's doing all of those things because it benefits every brain, not just the ADHD brain. But then we also get into those areas of weakness that ADHD can have, such as procrastination. Sometimes we can have rejection sensitivity in ADHD. Like we really don't want to make that phone call to that potential lead because we're afraid we're going to get rejected. So we start working on that. We also work on the fact that people with ADHD struggle with repetitive tasks. I'm pretty sure a large part of the audience right now, it really doesn't enjoy updating their CRMs and making sure that all the contact information's there, that the birthdays have been added. So the CRM being robust and well filled out can be quite the tool for the real estate agent, but filling it out and getting the tool updated to the best of your ability sometimes is one of the not fun tasks. So we focus on those not those specific things plus other things that are specific to the individual. And we're really lucky. We have a psychologist who's not with us today, Dr. Don Sheehan. And Dr. Sheehan is an expert in all sorts of assessments. And so for each individual we work with, whether it's in the productivity tract or in the ADHD tract, we have her to guide us and help us select the best assessments and interpret the data. And using that along with the relationship that we build with the individual, we come up with a personalized plan of attack to get the person to their long-term goals and getting the productivity that they're looking for. Yeah, we're really lucky to have Dr. Sheehan. She's quite the prize for us, and she's a good friend as well. So Kate is going to take over, and she's going to talk about the tracks that she oversees.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the one specific track that I oversee, which is the life and career balance track. But really more importantly, in regards to the productivity, talking a little bit about the barriers and the challenges to productivity, concepts of bandwidth, self-assessment, and mental flexibility, and how they relate to productivity as well. We all have occasional barriers or even consistent barriers to productivity and our motivation. Some of those barriers may be internal, and what I mean by that are medical or mental health barriers. If we're experiencing depression, a high level of stress, that could affect our ability to be productive, to even want to be productive. If we have physical limitations, we have chronic medical illness, that could also impede us. Poor sleep. I mean, I don't know anyone who functions really well when they don't sleep well. And so that, that's a big factor. Our tendency to procrastinate, our tendency to have challenges relative to organization. So those are all the internal types of barriers that people may experience from time to time or consistently. We also have external ones, and external ones are generally variables that we have little or no control over. Childcare issues, scheduling with our spouses, relationship stressors, a barrage of new clients that we're just trying to find the time to make, in our schedule and to really do our best by them. And so recognizing what our barriers are can be extremely important in terms of being able to shift and pivot and be more productive. It also requires self-assessment and the ability to understand where our bandwidth is at any given point. I personally define bandwidth as our overall level of physical, emotional, and mental energy. the higher bandwidth we have day to day, the higher our levels of productivity and motivation in general can be, and just general satisfaction with our life and our career. Um, and so, we all wake up with a certain amount of bandwidth. And again, those external barriers will influence it. If we're able to regularly and consistently self-reflect and assess where we are at any given point, it gives us the ability to really modify what our plan is. We might have a great plan for productivity in any given day or week, and then we don't sleep for 3 days, right? That perfect example, the holidays have come up. This generally means that people have a lot more to generally do. There's only so much time you can fit in a day, which is unfortunate, but it's true. And so in terms of understanding bandwidth, again, it's that physical, that mental, the emotional bandwidth we have at any given point, and working with what we have. How do we stay mindful of bandwidth? And that's a question that a lot of my clients ask me. And how do we stay on top of it? What I usually suggest are things like self-assessment and temperature taking. Where am I at any given point? Taking, it's the idea of mindfulness, really checking in with yourself, taking your temperature. I'm feeling really exhausted right now. I have a lot I need to do. What is the highest priority? And so that's how I'll help my clients break those pieces down. When we're regularly self-assessing for our bandwidth and we're needing to shift or change what we need to do, oftentimes it helps with the negative self-talk that Beth had talked about earlier, in the sense of it's very easy for us to say, if we're stumbling with productivity, oh, I'm so lazy, as opposed to, I just have really low bandwidth right now. I didn't sleep. My kid is sick and home from school. My mother needs to come over and babysit, and everything just kind of gets in flux. Those two statements feel very differently. I'm just lazy, or I have low bandwidth. So it's not a practice of making excuses for ourselves. It's a practice of just being regularly in touch with where we are at any given point. Ways in which you can do that. A lot of people find journaling to be helpful, carving out 5 minutes each morning or even throughout the day just to check in with themselves. Oftentimes, if you're working with a coach often serves that purpose, as does a trusted mentor, a colleague, a friend. But really having that accountability in those pieces where you're just constantly looking in the mirror, so you really understand where you happen to be at any given point. One of the things that I use a lot with my clients is a number rating, meaning it's just something very simple. Am I at a 10, meaning I have the highest bandwidth right now, or am I at a 1? I have none. And then really, I think one of the biggest things that people can learn is how to practice mental flexibility. And what I mean by mental flexibility is that ability to pivot and to shift, and just to adapt to change really quickly. Something comes up in life. Something always comes up in life, and we need to make a change. And for some people, they find that relatively easy to do. For a lot of people, not so much. I'm in the not so much camp. And so practicing that mental flexibility is sort of the ability to give yourself some grace when things really do. If you have the flu and you're not making the 10 or 15 calls that you had planned to make in that 1 hour period of time because you're throwing up, giving yourself some grace, taking some Pepto, giving yourself some grace, and just recognizing, working with what you have. So mental flexibility, yeah, the ability to change course, to modify goals, to see what's working, to see what's not working. And that's just all part of that, taking your temperature and asking yourself, is this an area in which I can improve? And if I can, what do I need to help me get there? So when we have high bandwidth, we're more energetic, we're more motivated, we feel less anxious, we feel more in control. And generally our sleep is better as well. And so that is those are really core concepts of any coaching, really, is being as effective as you could possibly be. Coaching isn't necessarily for people who are struggling in certain areas. It's also for people who just want to continue to improve on what they have been doing and want to do. So in that regard, I'll talk a little bit about the coaching tracks that we have, or actually they've been talked about already. A lot of our coaching tracks all have similar components. The one that I work on specifically is the career and life balance track. I've developed it and I've oversaw it based on information in the work that I've done with many of my clients over the past 30 years. And it's productivity is a big part of that, but there's equal focus, unlike the productivity track or the ADD track, there's equal focus on life spheres. And when I talk about life spheres, I mean kind of what is going on with us, our physical health, our mental health, our social environment, our relationships, our family life, our finances, our spirituality. Are those in sync? Are those all even keel? Are they taking away, or challenges in that area? Are they taking away from our career and our professional life? Are they hindering us? Again, that taking the temperature part of things, and understanding how they influence our personal life. How does our professional life influence our personal life? Those things, they work in tandem. And so when I'm working with people in that coaching track, there's equal attention to those pieces. So it is focused on professional development, but there is more of an emphasis on what is going on in those other spheres. And that's my thing. Casey.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's okay. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So, is it time for Q&A?
It is time for Q&A if anyone has any questions.
Q&A. Does anybody from the audience have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions, so.
Kate, I had a question.
Yes.
With the folks who are, trying to learn how to have life and career balance, how many people are resistant to making some of those changes? Like I know that we've worked with some really accomplished clients in the past, and how many of them like openly and willingly make the changes to give themselves more balance, and how many of them stick to the old ways of doing things because that's where they're comfortable? How hard is it for them to transition to having more balance?
Honestly, my experience, it's not too hard. If they're motivated for the change. I have a client right now, and she's going through a really messy divorce, and her kids are acting up. She's really concerned financially. She's in this new childcare custody situation, and so she's understanding that she needs to spend more time in her personal life. She's unwilling to give up what she needs to be doing professionally, and so we're just kind of we're doing a lot of this high ranking, like what is the most important right this minute, today, this week, and really breaking it down into time chunks. I think that when most people find that, oh, I can be really productive and maybe even more productive if my bandwidth, again, right, is where I need it to be, they're finding greater satisfaction and just more equity in all spheres. I've never found anyone who's perfectly balanced in all life spheres. There's always got to be a little give and take. And that's where that mental flexibility and the shift comes from. So I feel like if people are truly, for lack of a better way of saying it, sick and tired of being sick and tired, or really are motivated. I think most of the people that come to work with us are people who are really, really motivated. They really want to make positive impacts in their life, and they want their career to really, really continue to move forward. They get a lot of the self-worth from there. And then the balance part is, how do I get that self-worth, and what is influencing the other piece? So I personally find people do not really be overly non-resistant. Especially when the changes start to occur pretty quickly. With coaching, unlike what we're used to, right, therapy and clinical work, we're not digging deep. We're not going into like all these, really like deeper, more complex issues. We're looking at them. We're paying attention to what's, influencing a person's overall level of motivation and productivity. But there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, and there's a very specific focus. So I think people find that to be motivating as well.
You know, you saying that reminds me about a client from a few months ago that we were working at that point on time management. And we were starting to do chunking, the time chunking, where you only do this, like the lead gen, you only do lead gen from 9 to 11. And you don't touch your voicemail, you don't touch your emails until 11. And that's the time when you answer, you know, any inquiries, you get back to current clients. And that really was motivating for them because all of a sudden they felt like they had had a productive morning versus a morning where a lot of energy was expended, but they really couldn't say what had been done. So that motivated them to make further change. So I see that.
Well, you know, and I think people in well, I know, right? People in the real estate industry, they, you know, they're very much like private practitioners, right? I mean, we actually have a lot in common, you
Yeah.
know, in the sense that, you know, we're all working directly with our clients to for the best possible outcome, right? And navigating those challenges. And I think having the ability to really kind of keep your eye on the prize and just kind of keep diligently working and managing and time chunking in that way really leads to a lot of freedom and increased bandwidth. Apparently, I'm very big on the bandwidth today.
Bandwidth, mental stamina.
Yes.
Casey, any questions?
There are still no questions, so members of the audience, if you have them, feel free to send them in. I have a question. Can you talk about the role of accountability and how important accountability is, like whether it's with a coach or with a coworker or someone at your brokerage, how important it is to just have somebody that you can check in with and kind of keep you on track?
I can. And I think this is something that we see, you know, not just in the workplace, but even in our personal life, such as exercising. Like there are just sometimes that we don't feel 100% motivated to, you know, go to the gym or to pick up the phone and make the call or to, you know, do the door knocking. And when we know that someone we care about is going to be asking us, hey, did you do the thing? And we're going to be asking them the same. We don't want to be the ones saying, no, I didn't do the thing. Especially if the other person goes, well, I did the thing. So, you know, holding each other accountable. So accountability partners is a big thing where you touch base with each other. Sometimes I've seen where people were in the offices right next door and they were both making calls at the same time. So knowing that someone else was doing it at the same time you were, just kind of gives you that sense of collegiality. Also an accountability partner can be someone who can brainstorm with you. Well, okay, you didn't do it. How come? Like, well, I waited till the evening and I was just so tired. I was hungry. I was tired. It was raining, and so the accountability partner, you know, might said, well, how about Saturday morning instead? You can go door knock Saturday morning. You can get up early, have a good breakfast. You know, it's supposed to be good weather. So they're there brainstorming you and pushing you. And even though, you know, we're individual practitioners, there's a lot of collegiality within the real estate world and in the coaching world and in the mental health world. And we can provide a lot of support to each other. I'm sorry, Kate, what was your question?
No, I was just going to say that, you know, one of the things that I do with my clients in terms of acting as a productivity partner with them is I'll create, well, the person and I will create, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? What is that going to look like? And I've actually created, I don't know how I figured out how to do this, but these little apps that they can use, that's their personal app to track how many calls they made, you know, did they stick to what they wanted to do? And they could submit it to me each evening. And then we could grab the data from that as well. So I think sometimes even having that where they don't necessarily have to talk to anybody, but it's still like that wanting to report. It's sort of like nutrition tracking, right? Like if I'm writing down everything that I'm eating, I'm going to maybe think twice about having that donut because I don't really want to submit that. I'd really much rather submit I had a salad. And it's that same kind of concept.
Just for the audience, Kate loves to make graphs, and her app that she creates for her clients, she makes really nice graphs. She loves data.
I'm a nerd.
Sure.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. This will go up on our socials and on YouTube. Everybody would have gotten the link via Casey and her email. So if anybody has any questions or you think of something after the fact and you want more information, we're happy to do that.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.